Okay, welcome back. In the previous video, we set up the basic configuration file structure for Platform SH on an empty Magento project and went into a little bit of detail about the build and deploy process that we have set up in our Magento template. In this last video, we're going to make a few minor adjustments to the codebase of Magento itself and then finally deploy it to Platform. So the first additional file that we're going to include to edit the Magento codebase is this static version PHP file. All that this is really going to do is be an additional front controller at this pub static location inside of the repository. And its purpose is just going to allow us to serve those static assets on that final deployed platform project. And this is going to work in tandem with our roots definition, where you remember we did have a specific root for static, and with our web locations block definition inside of our app.yaml file. The next file that we need, I touched on briefly in the last video, something that's changed in the deploy hook, specifically for the first deploy with the installer runs. For our template, we apply a patch file to the installer so that it does not look for information for your application that's already provided by Platform SH. So this is things like database credentials, file paths, and this initial admin account. And you saw that we set some of those parameters already inside of that deploy script in the last video. These aren't going to change anything in the post installation. It's just going to help with that initial install. And so what we need to do is we need to download and apply that patch file. So I mentioned briefly at the beginning of this series about our template builder tool. So what you can go ahead and do is curl from raw GitHub user content that patch file, put it somewhere locally, name it, and then apply the patch. And you'll see here that it is removing lines specifically that are trying to figure out anything about the file structure that can be pulled from the platform environment, and a little further down database credentials. Because again, we have that in the environment, we're setting them in that deploy script. That also includes in creating that admin user. We're removing the part where it tries to do that in the initial installer, and we're importing everything inside of the deploy script. To get that patch file location, go ahead and go to our Magento 2CE template on GitHub under the Platform SH-templates organization, and inside the README there'll be a link to that patch file that I'm showing here on screen. So we can go ahead then and locally apply that patch and then commit and push those changes to the project. And here we have the result of that push. We go ahead and check, and here we have our basic Magento site deployed. And then we can go ahead and log in. There we go. We have the admin login screen, and we're going to use those admin credentials that we had set up in our initial deploy. Here it is again in a little bit more detail. We have it set up inside of this deploy script. Here are arguments for the admin initial credentials. And so we can log in and we can change that password and start building out our Magento site. So obviously you're not going to be deploying from the empty upstream repository, but this will get what you need going to migrate your site. And then you can use the pieces of the end of the last Drupal tutorial along with the documentation itself to then migrate your database up to Platform with the same commands we used inside that Drupal tutorial. So thank you again for watching. Hope that this was helpful for you in the migration of your Magento sites, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much for watching. If you're enjoying these tutorials, please consider leaving us a G2 crowd review. Your assistance is greatly appreciated as we expand our efforts to share the Platform SH magic with more users. Take care.